Some people don't go quiet because they have nothing to say. They go quiet because, at some point, speaking cost them too much. Maybe you know that feeling. You're hurt. You feel everything. You think about everything. Maybe you even overthink every little detail. But on the outside, nothing comes out. No argument, no big explanation, no dramatic reaction, just silence. And people are quick to misunderstand that. They say, "You're being cold. You don't care. You're shutting people out. Why can't you just talk?" But it's not that simple. Because when someone goes quiet after being hurt, there is usually a lot more happening inside than anyone can see from the outside. That silence is not empty, it's full of thoughts, full of memories, full of sentences they want to say but can't, full of fear that if they speak, they will be misunderstood all over again. A lot of people think silence is a decision, like someone sat there and chose to punish another person by not speaking. But for many people, that's not what's happening at all. It feels more like something inside of them closes. Their body pulls back before their mouth can even find the words. Their chest feels heavy, their throat tightens, and suddenly, even one simple sentence feels impossible. Not because they don't know what they feel, but because they don't know how to say it without it being turned into something else. And this is where the psychology behind silence becomes important. Because silence is often not a sign of indifference, it's a protection mechanism. Maybe this person learned a long time ago that their emotions were not safe in other people's hands. Maybe they were laughed at when they were honest. Maybe they were called too sensitive, too dramatic, too difficult. Maybe they tried to explain their pain, and somehow the conversation turned against them. Suddenly, the hurt itself was no longer the topic. Now the problem was how they reacted, how they said it, how much they felt, how long it took them to get over it. And over time, the nervous system learns a quiet rule. If I speak, it gets worse. If I open up, I might be attacked. If I'm honest, I might lose control over how my words are used against me. So silence starts to feel safer, not because it feels good, not because it feels peaceful, but because it feels less dangerous. And this is what many people miss. A quiet person is not always feeling less. Sometimes they are feeling more. Inside, there may be an entire conversation happening. They replay what happened. They ask themselves, did I overreact? Was I unfair? Did I misunderstand something? Should I say something? And if I do, will it even change anything? Or will I just end up explaining myself until I don't even recognize my own feelings anymore? These people are not empty. They are overwhelmed. They are analyzing, feeling, remembering, trying to organize what is happening inside before they say something they might regret. And sometimes silence is also an attempt to protect the relationship. Because not everyone who stays quiet is trying to hurt you. Some people stay quiet because they know themselves. They know that if they speak while the pain is fresh, what comes out might not be a conversation. It might be a wound speaking through them. So they hold it in, not out of coldness, but out of responsibility. They wait until the wave inside them becomes smaller, until they can think clearly again, until they are no longer just reacting, but actually able to speak. But from the outside, this is often misunderstood. The other person only sees that they are different. Shorter replies, less warmth, less energy, more distance. And then the pressure begins. Just tell me what's wrong. Why are you acting like this? You can't just shut down. I hate when you get like this. And most of the time, that pressure does not help. It makes everything worse. Because now the quiet person is not only dealing with their pain, they are also dealing with the feeling that their way of processing is wrong, that they are too slow, too complicated, too hard to love. And that confirms the old fear. My emotions are only acceptable if I can explain them immediately, clearly, and perfectly. But some people can't do that right away. They need time, space, safety. Not because they want to be difficult, but because their inner world needs to calm down before words can come out in a way that feels safe and true. And there is an important difference here. There is healthy silence, and there is silence that becomes a wall. Healthy silence says, I need a moment, but I will come back. It is a pause, a way to regulate, a way to avoid saying something from a place of pain. But when silence becomes the only response, when someone stops trying to express themselves at all, then protection slowly turns into loneliness. At first, silence may feel powerful. You stay calm. You avoid conflict. You protect yourself from disappointment. You don't have to explain yourself to someone who may not understand anyway. But slowly, something sad begins to happen. Nobody really knows what is going on inside of you anymore. People only see the surface. They think you're okay. They think you've moved on. They don't see all the thoughts you carry alone. They don't see how many feelings never find a place to land. And eventually, you can feel lonely even around people. Not because nobody is near you, but because nobody has access to the real you. That is the hidden cost of emotional withdrawal. It protects you from being misunderstood, but it can also protect you from being known. It prevents conflict, but sometimes it also prevents healing. It preserves your dignity, but it can also make you invisible. And maybe that is the most painful part. Many quiet people actually want to be understood. They just don't want to fight for it again. They don't want to defend every feeling, prove every wound, explain every tear. They want someone who doesn't immediately judge, someone who doesn't rush them, someone who doesn't turn their silence into an accusation. Sometimes one simple sentence would be enough. I can feel that something is different. You don't have to talk right now, but I'm here. For a quiet person, that kind of sentence can mean more than 1,000 solutions. Because safety is not created by pressure. Safety is created by patience. By someone who can stay without demanding immediate answers. Someone who listens without correcting everything. Someone who doesn't only ask, what's wrong, but can also handle the fact that the answer may need time. And if you are someone who goes quiet when you're hurt, there is something you need to hear. There is nothing wrong with you. Your silence is not just a bad habit. It may be something you learned to protect yourself. Maybe at a time when your feelings had no safe place to go. Maybe with people who could not hold your truth gently. Maybe in situations where speaking did not make things better. And yes, that protection may have helped you survive. It may have carried you through moments where you would have felt even more exposed without it. But now, you are allowed to ask yourself, do I still need this protection everywhere? Because not every person will treat you like the people who hurt you before. Not every conversation will end in defensiveness. Not every honest sentence will be used against you. Not everyone who asks you to open up is trying to control you. Some people genuinely want to understand you, and healing does not mean you suddenly have to become loud. It does not mean you have to explain everything immediately. It does not mean you have to open your whole heart before you feel ready. Healing can begin very small, with one honest sentence. I need a little time, but I'm not leaving. I'm hurt, but I can't talk about it clearly yet. I'm not being silent to punish you. I'm trying to understand what I feel. I'm afraid of being misunderstood. Sometimes one small honest sentence is already a door, not wide open, just slightly open. But sometimes that small opening is enough for connection to begin again. And if you love someone who becomes quiet when they are hurt, try to remember this. Not all silence is rejection. Sometimes it is overwhelm. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is someone trying not to destroy the relationship with words they might regret. Sometimes it is a person fighting an entire battle inside while looking calm on the outside. Of course, this does not mean silence can replace communication forever. Relationships cannot survive on guessing. Closeness needs expression. Love needs emotional exchange. At some point, people have to find a way to speak. But the way back to communication is not pressure, it is safety. Because words return more easily when they are not forced. Maybe that is the most important thing to understand. Quiet people don't always have less to say. Sometimes they have just experienced too many moments where their words were not handled with care. And when you understand that, you hear silence differently. You don't just see distance, you see a story. You don't just see coldness, you see protection. You don't just see withdrawal, you see someone trying to hold themselves together. And maybe instead of asking, why won't they just talk? You begin to ask, what did they experience that made silence feel safer than speaking? Because that is where real understanding begins. Not in the loud explanation, not in the perfect sentence, but in the moment someone realizes, I don't have to defend my feelings in order to be heard. And maybe healing starts right there, not when the silence disappears, but when it finally becomes soft enough to no longer be the only safe place. Because sometimes connection does not begin with many words. Sometimes it begins with someone who stays, even when you don't have the language yet.